Happy Sunday and welcome back to Dear Black Girl, Season 4, Episode 4. Carlene, can you believe that we're already halfway through this season?
Peyton, I can't believe it. We are having so much fun this season. We've talked about identity, style, and secrets. And today our topic is getting to the money. Some may hear and think that we are talking about money, and we are, but we are talking about the context in higher education.
Carlene, you and I have a few years before we begin applying to college. Yet still there are things that we can be doing even now to prepare ourselves for that journey. To our viewing audience, today's show is going to be filled with such important information. Please be sure to share with every family who has school age children.
We will not delay today's show any longer. Let's begin with our mentor and the founder of Dear Black Girl, Cordelia A. Benny.
Outstanding job, ladies. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dear Black Girl, Season 4, Episode 4. We are so excited to be over halfway, more than halfway through our season. It's going so quickly. We are so excited to be here with you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. I know there are so many adults who are watching who wish they could do the road to college over. Right? If we had more information, if we had someone to read our essay, if we had someone to show us to the money, if we had someone to help us with the FAFSA, we would have done much better. And so that's what today's show is about. We want to equip our young ladies and the young men who are watching with the tools that they need to get through college, to prepare for it, to apply for it, to do well in it, and to graduate with no debt or as little debt as possible. We have an incredible guest today. She's one of my dearest friends, but even more than that, she's a mom of two. She has a son who's a junior in college and a daughter who's a junior in high school. And so she's been through this process. She's going through this process. And so she'll be speaking to you from experience. But she's also an education attorney and she's also a college professor. And so she has that professional piece as well. Listen, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank our sponsors, our Vanguard sponsor, Albion Ventures, Mr. Wayne Thompson. We are so grateful to him and how he supports Dear Black Girl. We are also thankful for all of our sponsors who help us to impact these girls in such a profound way. Right before we came on, one of our girls was having a tech issue and we were working it through. And one of the other girls gave us the solution. And I said to the girls, I made a joke. I said, I'm the adult. I should have thought of the solution. But I say that to say, they have each other's backs. They're learning how to work with each other. They're learning how to problem solve. The greatest thing you can be in this world is yourself, and you should be a problem solver. People will pay for you to solve their problems. And so the fact that these girls came together to solve that problem, they make me so proud. So let's turn it over to the girls. Thank you again to our sponsors. If you'd like to sponsor a DBG Dream Team leader, please go to www.dearblackgirl.us and do so today. Let's bring out Sky Asia and Audrey to lead us in this first segment. Have a wonderful interview, girls. Love you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Coco. Today we have the pleasure of chatting with Miss Mikila Thompson. Mikila Thompson is an education attorney and law professor with a nonprofit that seeks to help her community. The mother of two has a strong desire to help children of color see their full education potential. To that end, Mikila helps friends and family prepare their children for college and believes this process starts in elementary school.
She and her husband take youth on college tours, review essays, and offer insight on high school path toward college. Ms. Thompson is a graduate of Barnard College, Columbia University, and the Hofstra University School of Law.
Welcome to the show, Miss Thompson. Thank you for being with us today. To begin our show, we want to ask you a conversational question. Is college still relevant today? Is it worth pursuing?
Thank you, Audrey and Sky, for having me. Thank you for Dear Black Girl for having me. You guys are doing awesome. So I really appreciate all of your help and everything that you're doing on this show. Is college relevant? Absolutely. It is definitely worth attending, but the relevancy, I'll just quickly say the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a federal agency, puts out every year statistics on employment. That means basically getting jobs. And they have found, and it's consistent every year, that at whatever level of education you pursue, the higher up you go, the more money you make, and the less likely you will be unemployed. So that means if you go to if you go to graduate high school, you'll make some money, but you may have a likelihood of having some unemployment. If you go to college and graduate college, you may make more money and it may be less likely that you'll be unemployed. And so college is definitely still something that people should pursue, and it's definitely relevant in today's time.
Miss Thompson, there are many young students like me myself who have no idea when where to begin the college journey. What are the first three things students need to do to prepare for the college?
Okay, so that is a great question. So the first three things that girls should think about, or people, students should think about when they're attending college or looking at college, is first knowing the basics. So make sure that you are strong in both reading and math. Because that will help you be able to learn more complicated things as you go through school, especially for high school. The second is to make sure you are pursuing or doing activities that you enjoy. So you shouldn't join anything that you don't like. Obviously, if your parents want you to, maybe do something just to help you strengthen certain skills, that's fine. But you should definitely do things that you like a sport or another activity at school, or maybe music, things that you can do outside of school and in school as well. And then the third thing is to make sure that as you are going through school, you are building your study skills. So when you first start school, that might look like homework, right? But as you go through, as you get to like fourth and fifth grade and over in sixth grade and high school, you're going to have to review your work a little bit more than just homework. And so you want to make sure you develop your study skills too.
Similar to Sky's question, what are the first three things a parent needs to do to ensure their child is prepared for college?
That's a really good question because I know we're focused on the students, but yes, the parents have a role too. So, parents or caregivers. So, even if you don't live with your parent, if there's someone who takes care of you, they should be thinking of three things as well as others. But the first thing they want to think about is how to help you pay for college. So that might mean they should maybe, if they can, start like a small savings account, what we call a 529 plan, or some savings account to help save a little bit over time. It doesn't have to be a lot. You can start most 529 plans, which are savings accounts for school. You can start those with as little as $10 and maybe even 10 or 15, $20 a week or a month or whatever you can afford. But that's the first thing. The second thing is to start paying attention to the child's strengths. What does their child seem to be better at than other things, both academically and also a skill or a hobby? That way you can kind of help guide them into activities that will bring them both joy and help them stand out on their applications. And then lastly, make sure that the child is, definitely able to communicate and speak with the guidance counselors in their school and the different people who will play a role when they start their college process. As much as possible, if the caregivers and parents can kind of weigh in and make sure that these individuals know that they're there and they're ready to help, then they can make sure that their child is getting all of the resources and support they need when they start the college application process.
Miss Thompson, what is your advice to a student who is not a good test taker? It seems like a lot of college admissions is determined by test.
That's a really, really good question. First, I would tell the student that they should try to, I know you guys have talked about this in Dear Black Girl, try to talk to themselves in a different way, change the language. So first and foremost, it's not that they're not a good test taker. It's that sometimes the test may be written or set up a certain way that it's not helpful for them to answer the questions a certain way. So that's the first thing. You got to have some self-talk. Tell yourself, I can take this test. I am able to take these tests. But the second thing is to give themselves more time to prepare. And so when you're talking about college exams or exams for your application, you want to make sure that you're thinking of the SAT and the ACT. And so those are tests that you take later, like usually your junior year. And I'll talk a little bit about how to maybe cheat that a little bit and start as early as possible. But what you can do is if you know that taking tests makes you feel a little anxious or gives you some unsettling feelings, prepare for the test a little earlier than normal. And so if it's recommended you start preparing, say 2 months before you take the SAT, maybe you start preparing 4 or 5 months before and start doing bits and pieces to prepare rather than trying to do too much at once. And that way, hopefully that will lessen the anxiety that you may feel about the test.
How important is a student's grade point average? Are colleges and universities looking at other things? If so, what?
Very good question. So your grade point average or your GPA is actually important. Colleges do look at it amongst other things. They look at, some colleges don't necessarily look at SATs anymore, but they do look at SATs if they want to consider scholarships, which I know we'll talk about a little later. But your GPA, your grade point average, is important. And what colleges look at, they don't just look at the total grade point average. They do look at that as well, but they kind of look at every year how well you progress. So remember, high school is 9th through 12th grade. And when you apply to college, they're going to be looking at 9th grade, 10th grade, and then 11th grade. And so they want to see, does the student did you improve each year? So as much as they look at the total grade point average, they're really going to dig in and say, okay, they might not have had a great freshman year, 9th grade, but I noticed that they took a couple of challenging classes in 10th grade and they did better. And then they did even better in 11th grade. So the objective should be to improve as well as do your best and try to get a high grade point average.
Can you tell us the advantages and disadvantages of a public college or private college, an Ivy League school, and an HBCU or community college?
Oh, good question. Okay, so this one is I want to try to do my best to compare. So you have public colleges or universities are schools that are run and funded by the state that it's in. So for example, if you live in North Carolina, the public colleges include schools like University of North Carolina or North Carolina A&T or North Carolina State. And those schools tend to be less expensive than private schools. Why? Because the state government is helping to pay for it. So if you live in the state, like if you live in North Carolina, you can go to the University of North Carolina for less money than a student who gets in from another state. And every state has public universities and colleges. What makes them great, the pro about them, is not only are they less expensive, they're often some of the top colleges in the country. And so you can go to a school that is oftentimes well known and a strong school for way less money, which means you're more likely to graduate from that school with no debt. And so that's the upside of a public university or college. The private school universities and colleges are going to be more expensive, but they sometimes have more named recognition, and they are all over the country. And they carry the same price, whether you are coming from California to go to a school in Michigan, or you're coming from West Virginia to go to a school in Texas. The tuition is the same. But the con is they are often more expensive. And so you have to think about that when you're applying, if you can get some scholarships and some financial aid to help carry the cost of that school. HBCUs are historically Black universities, historically Black colleges, and they're amazing opportunities for students of color, Black students especially, to be in an environment that is more affirming than maybe where they're used to. And so they can be in a place that is, giving them more of the vibe of that they're welcomed, that they're affirmed, that they're in an environment where they'll be there are more people that look like them, that look like us. And so that's the upside. There are also schools that have a lot of expectations. They are oftentimes difficult to sometimes get into, but also you have to perform and really work hard to stay at those schools. The downside of historically Black colleges sometimes is that they don't always offer as much money. And it is oftentimes more difficult to carry through 4 years because they don't have the same funding as some of the private schools do. Unless you can go to a historically Black college that also happens to be a public university. So if you can find those type of mixtures and you live in that state, that's a great way to take advantage of that environment. And then finally, I think your last question, what the last part was about community colleges. Community colleges are a great opportunity for students who, one, may not have as much money to go through the whole process from start to finish in a 4-year school. They are less expensive. They're 2 years of time, and then you can transfer to a university that is a 4-year school. And so your total college cost will be lower. But the downside of a community college is if you are not focused enough, you can spend a lot of time there and not accomplish the goal of going for the 2 years. And so when you go to a community college, you really should go with a plan of how you're going to get through those 2 years and finish. Community colleges also don't have as much support as the 4-year institutions have. And so you might talk to an advisor, but you may not have an advisor that's going to hold your hand, because community colleges oftentimes have other adults, people who return back to school. And so they don't necessarily need as much handholding. And so you really want to make sure that you have other support outside of the school, maybe family members or other people, to help you navigate through, so that you spend as little time in the community college as possible to transfer to the 4-year school.
So, how early should parents begin talking with their kids about college? Should they take their kids on college tours? If so, what is the best way to arrange this?
Okay. So I think that you should start talking to your kids about college as early as possible, even in elementary school. The conversation changes as a child gets older. And so you might ask a child, like a parent or a caregiver can ask the child, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you like? What do you think about when you grow up? I recently did a career day for 3rd graders, and it was really fun and exciting to talk to some of the students about, my work. And I explained to them how long it took for me to get to what I do. And, they're 3rd grade, so they don't understand a lot of the process of going to college, but they still asked questions and they were still able to have a better understanding. And I kept it at their grade level. And so what parents can do is they can really talk to their children about little parts of the process, but start with what they like, careers that involve college and things like that. And then the other part is, as far as college tours are concerned, I would say it's probably best to start that process maybe 9th grade. You don't want to take a 5th grader to see a college when they're still trying to understand a lot of the things that happen in elementary school and a lot of the concepts. But I think a 9th or 10th grader, more ideally 10th grade, is a great time to start. And parents don't have to overwhelm themselves with taking their child across the country. You can take a child to a local college in your area, somewhere that's less than an hour away, and let them see the campus and understand the campus. That will be more impactful than trying to figure out how to take a day off to go to a campus, unless that child knows exactly where they want to go and you're going to save up to get them to see that college campus at some point.
What classes should students be taking in elementary school, middle school, and high school? Are advanced placements course important?
Good questions. So elementary school, you really don't have a lot of choices, right? And remember what I said as far as what some of the things that students should think about as far as preparing. In elementary school, you should really be working hard, and caregivers and parents should really try to make sure their child in elementary school knows the basics, reading and arithmetic, making sure that they are solid in their reading skills, their fluency, their comprehension, and they also can do basic math, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's elementary school. And as they get through elementary school, they'll build up to it. Middle school, same thing. There's not a lot of choices. Students can't really decide what they take. But in middle school, that's where you can kind of make, since you made sure they have the foundation, you can nudge your child and have them challenge a little bit to get to some of the more complicated classes later in middle school. By 8th grade, the objective should be to get your child to take 9th grade math in 8th grade, and possibly, if possible, a higher level English and social studies, and also science. The reason is, if they can get a little bit of a head start when they get to 9th grade and get to high school, then they open the door to be able to really succeed in an AP class. You don't want to have your child take classes that are difficult for the sake of saying they took a difficult class. You want them to, students want to take a difficult class as a challenge, but they want to have some level of success. And the best way to have them be able to succeed in something like an AP class in high school, which is an advanced placement class, more like a college class, is for them to have a strong foundation and a strong command of the information before they take that class. An example of that is if a child takes 9th grade English math, which is algebra, in 8th grade, they'll then take 10th grade in 9th, 11th grade in 10th, and then they'll be on the track to possibly take calculus by 12th grade. But you don't want to throw your child in something that difficult without the foundation.
If there is a high school junior or senior watching, but they haven't applied to any schools and don't even know where to begin, what advice would you give to them to catch up and increase their chances of getting into a school now?
Good question. Okay, so juniors, you guys have a little bit of time. What I want the juniors and the junior parents to focus on is making sure that your student is doing their best in the classes they are taking right now. Junior year is considered one of the most important years of high school. It's because it's the last year that colleges look backwards toward. So you want them to really just gear up and do their best. Most marking periods are ending now or may have ended a couple of weeks ago. And so you want to kind of make sure you look at that report card and see, okay, what can I do to help you? Should you be going to extra help? That's what juniors should be working on. Juniors also should be making sure that they've engaged in at least 2 to 3 at best activities within school, maybe one of them being a leadership role if possible. That way they have something to work with on their resume when they do start applying to college. My seniors, what I want you guys to do, we are in November. Today is November 6th. You still have time to apply to college if you have not started already. Most college applications are due, I think, January 1st or so. There are some where they might be due as an early action in mid-November, but it's okay if you can't get it done. The things seniors should be doing, if not done already, is they need to have their essay done. They should have completed it. If they have not, they need to sit down with their guidance counselor and an English teacher they trust to get that together. The next thing they want to do is go on and create their common application. And that's, you go to common application. I don't know the website off the top of my head. It's commonapplication.org. But if you Google common application, you can find it. And you can apply to most of the schools that are available across the nation through this portal. You want to create that. And then finally, you want to make sure you sit down with your guidance counselor. I believe most students should have talked to their guidance counselor by now, but if that has not happened, make sure that you make an appointment. And parents and caregivers, encourage your seniors to do this if they haven't. Senior year is a very emotional year, and a lot of seniors oftentimes feel uncomfortable. They're stressed out. They won't tell you, but they're afraid of this transition. they're leaving the nest. And so they sometimes will just pause and think that I'll get it done soon, but I don't want to do it right now. They need your encouragement. They need your help. And don't feel like, that it's okay to step away. Give them, step away a little bit, but give them some support so that they can feel like they still have that hedge of protection that their family gives them, because they're struggling with understanding that this change is happening and it's happening very fast.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thompson, for this incredible conversation. Now that we know all about the academic requirements for pursuing college acceptance, we need to talk about the finances.
How do we get to the money that will help us pay for college?
Well, there's a lot of ways. I feel like that we're going to talk a little bit about that next, I believe, right? We're going to talk about scholarships and grants and applications for all of those things in our next segment.
Please welcome our next interviewers, Kendall and Brianna.
Thanks, Audrey. I'm really interested in this next segment since I will be going to college soon. And if we know anything about higher education, it is expensive.
It definitely is.
Hi, I'll be filling in for Brianna since there's some issues. But as Kendall had said, it is college, it is expensive. And like students have access to funds for college, but there are so many who are dependent on taking out loans to make their college dreams come true. So let's continue the conversation with your mom, Mrs. Thompson, but this time let's talk about money.
Hi, Mom. What is the first college prep decision a new parent should make for their newborn? What should they be doing in elementary, middle, and high school to finance college?
Very good questions, ladies. And I'm very excited to talk about this because I think the money part is the part that a lot of times we don't think about until we're in the mix of the application. So, if it's possible, when a family has a baby, I believe that they should immediately create a 529 plan. And so, what that is that it's a type of account that adults can create for the purpose of their children's education specifically. That money can be on and be put in at a tax, tax free. So you can put it in pre-tax. And when it's withdrawn, it can be withdrawn at no tax penalty as long as it's used for education. And so that's the first thing. And the earlier that families can start that for their children, the more money over time they will put in, even if they start out with a little bit, and the more likely they'll be able to cover most of the cost of college. Another thing that parents should think about, even as they consider, as the child is growing into elementary, middle, and high school while they're saving, is really helping their child have a strong foundation academically. Because the stronger the child is able to do their work and able to get good grades, the more they can try to command money from the colleges they apply to in high school in preparation for college. And so, as much as the last segment was focusing on the academics can impact the money part. And so parents can both help their child by helping their child save, as well as helping their child do as best as possible academically in elementary, middle, and high school so that they can apply to college with some possible opportunities for scholarships.
Can you talk to us about the difference between loans and grants and how we can access each?
Good question. So a loan is money you borrow and then later on you pay back. And so college loans and graduate school loans, you borrow when you need it to pay the tuition. And then later, they won't ask you really for the money back until you graduate, but you will be getting interest on top of it over the course of college. And so a lot of people don't think about that. So I'm going to simplify it as much as possible. Let's say you borrow $1,000. We all wish that's all you had to borrow, but let's say you borrow $1,000 your freshman year and you sign the paper. They won't ask you to start paying back the $1,000 until you graduate. But if you don't pay anything, every month interest is building on that $1,000 every single month from the moment you borrow it. And let's say something happens and you can't finish school or you have to pause college for whatever reason. The minute you pause college, 9 months later, you have to start paying that loan. And so any break in your education means the loan is going to be due. And so that's a loan, money you borrow to have to pay back. Whereas a scholarship or a grant is money given to you that you don't have to pay back. And so many schools do have grants that they give in the form of the student's financial aid package. And if you can get a grant from your college or from some organization, that is the best thing because you are given the money and that's it. You don't have to pay any of it back.
That is like one thing that I'm trying to avoid when I get off to college. College debt, it's not a good thing.
No.
And I remember like one of the platforms that you recommended yesterday, Scholly.
Yes.
I already downloaded the app and
Oh, great.
I'll be trying to apply for some scholarships there.
That's awesome. And Scholly is great because I think you can apply, you can start, some of them you can start applying now. You don't even have to be already on your way to college. And then what'll happen is it'll release or you'll get it once they know what college you're going to. So definitely look at Scholly, anyone who is on this. It's a great, great website.
Yeah, my school always announces like different scholarships they have in the town and at the school and different schools.
Absolutely.
So there are many students watching who do not have financial support from their parents or guardians and have little to no money themselves. Is college a possibility for them and how?
Absolutely. So every student who is applying to college, no matter how much money their parents earn or how little their parents earn, or if they don't have any parent support at all, when they apply, so they can fill out the FAFSA, which is the free application for student financial aid. And what that means is they're going to give information, financial information. Usually the parent or guardian fills out part of it. But if a student doesn't have parental support, they live with other family, they live with someone else taking care of them who does not have legal rights to be their guardian, they will apply as an independent student. And what that means is when they do that FAFSA form, they will check off a box saying they're an independent student. And that includes all sorts of types of individuals. That could be a student who is living with someone under a certain program due to a certain situation, foster youth. They all could be in that. And what will happen is they will get a separate pot of money accessible to them, because they're independent students, and they will get more financial aid to help because they don't have an adult, a guardian or parent providing finances for them. And so I argue that anyone in that camp is absolutely able to go to college, pursue and finish with as little debt as possible. The key is talking to someone and making sure, I would start with the guidance counselor, making sure that they sit down and go over that with them so that they make sure that it's filled out correctly.
What is the FAFSA? Can you talk us through and what it is and what we can access through it?
Absolutely. FAFSA are your parents and caregivers' biggest nightmare, to be honest, but it stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And it is an application that most of the time is the adult, or like I said in the previous answer, if the child is considered an independent student, the child will fill out. And it asks all sorts of questions about the finances. So you have to tell them if you have money in the bank. You have to tell them how much assets you have. How much does the adult earn? Does the child have their own earnings? Do they make a certain amount of money? And really, if you have a part-time job as a student, but you live at home with your parents or a guardian or a caregiver, and they file taxes, then you don't fill out the FAFSA, the parent or adult does. But you give all this information, and then it goes into a computer, and then they spit back out and tell you how much extra aid you can get. And that's money that the schools will give you outside of loans and scholarships. And so, the lower an income is, the more likely they can get more like aid in the form of financial aid from the school than otherwise. But that is dependent on the schools you apply to. So that goes back to why it's oftentimes best to consider the state schools where the state you live first, because you can get more aid and it's less money that you have to pay for tuition. But it's a very FAFSA, the adults who will help you, the seniors apply to school, that will take a couple of hours to fill out. And I advise any parents or guardians who are financially responsible for students to have your tax forms, have your bank statements and everything set up. And so as they ask the questions, you can put it in. If you don't know the answer right off the bat, you can save the information you've already put in and then go back to it. The other key thing about FAFSA, and this is very important because it is a government website, it has a lot of quirks. Make sure you write down your login information and password, because if you forget it, it is very difficult to get it back. So write down everything in like a book somewhere safe and just have it and refer to it, so that way you're not trying to memorize everything in your head.
Can you talk to us about how to use investments, life insurance, custodial accounts, or other options to pay for college? And how can parents begin those processes?
So as far as investments, you can use any form of money to pay for college, but I would say try to use things like education savings accounts or 529 plan accounts first, because they have the 529 plan specifically have tax benefits. But you can use anything to pay for college. It's just a matter of making sure that whatever you use, that the tax implications, how you end up having to pay back in the form of taxes because it might be considered income, is impacted. So I suggest, if you do have assets like investments and life insurance policies, even as well as the 529 plans, that parents and caregivers and guardians should talk to their a financial planner or their accountant to kind of go over what to withdraw and how to do it, so that you don't do it with too much tax burden on you. And if you don't have those options, then work with your child to consider how to apply for as many scholarships as possible.
I feel like the most challenging thing about attending college is like how you're gonna pay for it, because we all know that college costs a lot. So I'm really grateful for like scholarships and so on to help those in need and those like who can't afford colleges.
Yeah.
So, to our next question, how can students access additional resources while already in school? Is there a financial aid office and what should we be saying or asking when we visit that office?
Good question. Every college has a financial aid office. So I'm guessing you're talking about the student has gotten through high school, they applied to these colleges, they found a college that they love, and now they're just they're in their freshman year, looking toward maybe their sophomore year, and they realize that they're still a little short. And that's really it's a reality for a lot of students, right? They get a lot of scholarships when they graduate high school, and they use a lot of that money toward their freshman year, and now there's a gap after that. So they should go to their financial aid office and sit down with them and see if there are any scholarships available from the school that they can access for the next year. The other thing I also want students to think about is when they're choosing the college initially. So let's say they decide not to go to a state school and they get a scholarship at other schools throughout their list. Look at what is required to keep the scholarships that you get for these schools, because sometimes you'll get a scholarship and it'll say only for freshman year, or you'll get a scholarship and it'll say must have a 2.5 GPA in order to keep the scholarship. If you know what you need to do to keep it, then you can work toward that end and you can make sure you stay on top of your grades and things like that. But another thing that the student can look at, and they can talk to the financial aid office before they say yes to a college, is are there scholarship opportunities after I've gone? Let's say you get on the dean's list in college and you do really well. Can I get another scholarship on top of what I've already gotten because I've done so well at your school? Just so at least you know what to expect. I think a lot of times as parents, and this is coming from a parent who has a college student currently, and as students, we're so excited about getting into the school that we don't think about that question, Margot. We don't think about what about year 2, 3, and 4. And so try to find out what you can about each school once you have acceptances to see where your options are to expand. And then on top of it, yes, go to the financial aid office at your school, maybe around spring, like March or even February of that year, to talk about the following school year so that you know what to do to figure out how to add more finances. You also want to consider work study, because work study gives you the opportunity to earn money while you're in school on the school's campus. And there are other options, maybe even off campus after you've gotten more comfortable with college, that you can maybe earn money there as well to help fill the gap and try your best to avoid the loans.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing these amazing tips. This information and wisdom will bless many families. So, how can people stay in contact with you?
So the best way to probably stay in contact with me would be through LinkedIn. I'm under my name, Mikila Thompson, and then also through our email through SOAR, which is a nonprofit that I run or help run with my husband. info@soar, SOARNY.org.
Thanks again, Ms. Thompson. To close out today's show, please welcome Dream Team leaders Alexis and Brielle.
Today's show has been filled with so much amazing information. I'm sure we will return to it again and again. Please remember to share this with a family who needs information on preparing for college.
I have quite a few years before I get there, but I know I will be ready when it's time for college. Well, join us again next Sunday where we'll be discussing Curious Careers, a session about incredible women with unique careers. See you next week.